Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me. So we're going to talk a little bit about, talk an awful lot about the FAFSA, the 2024-25. As you know, it still has not been released yet. The tentative date that I just heard today was for December, committed to that. So in the meantime, we're going to show you this video of a boot camp for how to navigate this new FAFSA. And so I hope that you will learn something from it, and I'll stay on with you guys. And after the presentation is over, if you have any questions that I can help you with, I will certainly do my best. All right. So Ms. Kirschbaum, I guess you could start the video now.
We go. If you know, you know, and I'm happy that each of you have decided to take time out of your schedule, your busy schedule, whether you're on your way home from work or you're listening to me in your earbuds while you're putting the little one to sleep. I am extremely happy that you have taken the time to join us today. And as Fred said, we're going to cover and do a walkthrough of the 24-25 FAFSA form, leveraging our prototype platform, and we're going to give you a preview of what to expect when you're completing the 24-25 FAFSA form. So, with that said, let's get started. First things first, you can visit FAFSA.gov or studentaid.gov to start the application and right away. But keep this in mind, that's only if you're doing it for the 23-24 FAFSA form. The 24-25 FAFSA form will not be available until December. But that's why we're here today, to give you a walkthrough of what to expect when it does come out. And when you have equipped, you have the information at hand, so you can go ahead and get started. Now, when you come to studentaid.gov, and again, you can also go to FAFSA.gov, you're going to see the screen. You're going to see what you see on your screen. You have 4 tabs that will give you more information about the FAFSA form, about loans and grants that we do offer after completing the FAFSA and enrolling into school, a college, career, or a university. Or if you're in repayment with your student loans, guess what? We have information for you as well, in addition to if you want to apply to one of our loan forgiveness programs. When you scroll down a bit, as you can see, you get a lot of information as it pertains to the FAFSA form. So if there's information that is not covered that you really wanted to know more about, go ahead and visit studentaid.gov to learn more about the FAFSA form. Now, once you come up to the right-hand corner right here where it says log in and create an account, if you have an FSA ID already, then you can go ahead and log right on in. If you need to create an account, you're simply going to click on create an account, and then you'll be prompted to go ahead and enter information and have that information pre-populated onto the FAFSA form. But for the purpose of this session, we're going to focus on the 24-25 FAFSA form. So let's say we're going to assume that you already went ahead and created an account. All the information has already been verified, and so you have come back here to go ahead and log in. When you click log in, you're going to see this screen here right before you. That's where you can enter your username, an email address, or a phone number, and then you're also the password that you created. You can go ahead and enter that and hit log in. If you forgot your login, that's okay. Just come down here to forgot my username and go ahead and retrieve your username. Typically, a good way to retrieve that is using your email address. So as you're creating an account, you don't have to have an email address. However, if you do forget your username, if you do forget your password, it makes it a little bit more easier to go ahead and retrieve that. And then your phone number, if you have on a 2-factor authentication, which basically means when you log in, it sends a text to your phone. And then what you do is you enter that number, and then you're able to get access to the account. That's easy to do. That's easy to do as well. And if you come in and you realize that you do not have an FSA ID, then you can come down a little bit further and still have the opportunity to create an account. However, if you're having trouble with all of that, feel free to go ahead and click on Help Me to log into that account. So with that started, we're going to start out with a number of different scenarios as we navigate this form. The first one is going to be a student that is deemed independent, and we're going to run across a couple of those scenarios. And then we're going to come back into completing the FAFSA form as a student who's a parent. And so a parent that wishes to go back to school. So we're going to have two frames over here that we're going to be operating as. And we're going to do the first few sections just discovering that and exploring that a little bit more. So first off, we're going to start out with the student who is going to college for the first time, who's not a parent. So when they come in, this is the screen that they're going to see. Remember, they went to studentaid.gov or FAFSA.gov, and they went into the upper right-hand corner, clicked log in, and they enter their username and password. And now this is the screen that they are viewing. Now, remember when I went over those 4 tabs with studentaid.gov, and you see this once again, you can still access the information if you need it. It's very helpful information, so we feel free to peruse the website and to discover new information along the way. We always recommend, before you get started, just take a moment to explore our landing page that has a wonderful bit of information. First and foremost, one of the most important ones, in my opinion, is also discovering the deadline, the FAFSA deadline for your own particular state. So we're going to click on 24-25 academic year. Just sort of to explain what academic year is to some of you who may not know what that is. That's the year that the student is enrolled in school. And typically it goes from July 1st until June 30th every year. So if they're considering that they want to enroll at a college or university or a career school this year, then that academic year is going to be between July 1st of 2023 and 2024, or June 30th of 2024. So they're going to complete the 23-24 FAFSA form because that's when they're going to be enrolled in school and that's when they want the funds applied, right? So if they're a senior this year or early graduating junior, or they're a college student, or someone interested in going back to school after July 1st, 2024, then they're going to complete the 24-25 FAFSA form. And that's why we're selecting the 24-25 academic year here, because that's when the student is planning to enroll. So we're going to select the state, and in this particular case, we're going to say that the student is from New York. And when she clicks that, she's going to go ahead and hit find deadlines. And then you're going to be provided some helpful information as to what kind of grants the state of New York offers for students attending state school, most of the schools in state. Now, you may reside in a state that offers funding to go out of state. You just want to make sure that you are checking with your state's higher education authority. So in this case, as you see on your screen, this individual is from the state of New York, and some of the grants and scholarships that are offered are represented here. Now, the college deadline may be different from the state deadline, so it's always important to, when you're looking into going to college, that you're discovering a few deadlines. Number one, when is the last day that I can complete a FAFSA? And if you're completing the 24-25, the last day will be June 30th of 2025. Then you have to discover what's your state deadline. In this particular case, it just depends on the grant, because you have one grant that's within the state of New York has a deadline of October 1st. And then you have, the promise, which has an apply by date of March 1st. So you sort of want to just find out when is the deadline for that particular grant, but also the college, university, or career school may have its own FAFSA deadline. So you want to take the earliest deadline and try to complete the FAFSA form by that deadline. And if you have interest to go to a number of different states, schools within a number of different states, then you can come over here where it says view all FAFSA deadlines on the upper right-hand side, as you see of your screen. And you're just going to select view all FAFSA deadlines, and you have a list of all of them there. Now we have a number of different information of answers to commonly or frequently asked questions. Number one, who should be completing the FAFSA form is the student in this particular case. We also give you sort of an estimate of how long it will take, and typically it can take an hour. Don't worry, we're not going to take an hour. We're not going to hold you that long. We just want to make sure that you know where to go and how to navigate. So also, we're going to dive into what do you need. These are several things that you may need. Now, with we talk about verified username account, we're talking about the FAFSA ID. That's why on the outset, when you saw me go navigate to how to log in or create an account, that's what that was representing. If you have any contributor names and information, if that's needed, then you'll need that as well. We do have also a video, and don't worry, you're going to see this video again. So we always recommend sharing our videos. And just like this session, if you learned something, share something. So this video that's on what the FAFSA form is, feel free to share it on your social media platforms so others could be informed as well. And if you're interested in viewing the video, please feel free to click on it and check it out, or you can visit your YouTube page and view it on there as well. Now, we wanted to put as much information on this landing page, so therefore you can stay in the know and you can stay well informed as to what to expect when completing the FAFSA form. So we have a number of different other questions that we tend to get throughout our time of conducting webinars or engaging with you in the public. So we want to make sure that you have that information. So feel free to click on them and find out more information as well. So with that said, that's the landing page. But I'm sure many of you joined in and you were really excited. You saying, okay, I already checked out that website. I'm sure you have. So let's go ahead and get started. So when Rhea comes in and signs into her FAFSA or logs in and clicks as she wishes to start, she has the option of starting as a student and as a parent. But in this case, she's starting as a student. If she was coming back to complete information on the behalf of her student, then she's going to come in as a parent. But in this particular case, she's coming in as a student. So we go ahead and get started with that. Now, remember when I said that this video is going to come back? This is exactly what I meant. So we have 4 different topics that we believe are going to be helpful. Again, we're trying to provide you as much information as possible because it is our purpose to make sure that you are making well-informed decisions. And the best way that we know how to do that right now is obviously giving you the information as you see on your screen. So when you look at the video at your leisure, you'll find out more information about what is a FAFSA form, and we do a little short overview as well. On the next screen, we dive into information as to what is a contributor. A contributor is anybody that's providing information onto the FAFSA form. So in many cases, it's the student. Well, in all cases, it's the student being one contributor. And then if a dependent student, then we're going to require information from the parent. And the marital status and the location of the second parent in many cases will dictate who is a contributor for a dependent student. But for an independent student, that's not going to be required. And so if you want more information from a dependent perspective, please take the time and feel free to check out our video on our YouTube platform of FSA Outreach. So go to youtube.com/FSA Outreach. Now, when it comes to an independent student, for the most part, unless you're married, we will not need information from your parent. So the third one is what to expect, and we give a little bit more about contributor. Just for clarification my last statement, I wasn't saying that basically as a married couple, you're going to require information from the parent, you're going to require information from the spouse, and that spouse is the contributor. Just a little bit of clarity. So when it comes down to a contributor, all individuals must provide consent and approval for information, what's also known as their FTI, federally transmitted information, to be populated onto the FAFSA form itself. It doesn't matter whether or not you have filed, you will file, you're a late filer, you're a foreign tax filer. It doesn't matter in any of those cases. Everybody must provide consent onto this section as well in order for the student to be eligible for federal student aid. And we'll get into what that looks like in just a few. The last screen we have is what to know after submitting a FAFSA form. One thing that we always say in short is that after completing the FAFSA form, there's still much work to be done. So when your FAFSA form is submitted, it's on you to follow up and have also identified different additional avenues of funding for the college education as well. So let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, when she already had an FAFSA ID, so the good way we were able to see is that, hey, information was already populated onto the FAFSA form itself. So she didn't have to worry about re-inputting information. That was a way of us just trying to cut down on the time to completion. We do recognize that in the past, you may recall that the information had to be entered twice. So we cut down on that several years ago. And so years going forward, you're going to see the information populated onto the FAFSA form. Then we want to ask questions as to the permanent mailing address. This is just double check to make sure information is correct. So when you're going through the FAFSA form, you're just doing double checks on information that you know to be true. In this particular case, it's of the mailing address. So looks good to me. Everything looks good to me. So we're going to go ahead and hit continue. Now, in her case, she's from New York. And we're going to say she was born in 2023. We're going to say that she became a legal resident in the state of New York in 2004, 1 year after she was born. Now, many of you may be moving from state to state. And if you move from one state to another, we just want to know, when you moved to that new state, when did you become a legal resident? That information is also sent down to the states because some state grants may be tied to the time that you are a resident within that state. And this is a way of them checking for that. But in this particular case, this student has been a resident in the state of New York since year 2004. So we're going to go ahead and hit continue. And if you're not a resident of the state that you moved into, then you just simply state that you're a resident of another state. So the next screen that will be presented is on the consent of approval. Now, if you scroll down here and the student says, you know what, I am in no reason going to provide consent. Well, if they hit decline, they're going to get sent a pop-up letting them know that they will be ineligible for federal student aid if they do not provide consent. So in this particular case, the student says, I'm filling out this form to see if I'm eligible for federal student aid. She's going to go ahead and hit provide consent. Once she clicks provide consent, the information will be sent from the IRS and it'll be populated onto the form. If you're a late filer, don't worry, because when it does that check, it's not going to see information in there. Then you're going to be required to enter information manually. After you enter information manually and process the FAFSA and then file your taxes, then information will be populated and all of that will get updated after the tax returns have been processed by the IRS. So just keep that in mind if you're a late filer as well. So then we dive into what is the personal circumstances. This is the first of 5 sections. The 5 sections are personal circumstances, demographics, finances, college, and then signature. So we're going to focus on personal circumstances and demographics for a good portion of this webinar, because those are where we're going to run our scenarios into different dependency statuses and so forth. But again, for this particular session, we're focusing on independent, but I'll give you a little tidbits about being a dependent student in law as well. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and hit continue. Now, marital status can also dictate dependency status, because if you're a single, then it's going to ask you, we're going to go into additional questions. If you're married, we're going to need information from your spouse, not your parent. You're going to be deemed independent in that particular case. Remarried, same thing as being married. And then separated, legally separated, divorced, and widow. Those ones will factor in. If you have a student and you yourself are a divorced parent, then we're going to need information directly from you. If you are a widowed parent at the time of filling out the application, then we're going to need information directly from you, the parent I'm referring to. If you're legally separated, then at the time of when your separation occurred, then we're going to need to go in and just put in your information. Again, that information will be verified by the school, so just make sure you have your information off to the side, typically a tax transcript or your pay stubs and things like that. You want to contact the school to determine what they need in terms of that. So the first scenario that we're going to run in this particular case is that this student was never married, okay? And so we're going to go ahead and hit continue. And then we're going to ask questions about what are their college and career plans. Are you going in as a freshman, which is your first year? Are you going in as a second year or your sophomore year or your third year and beyond? Or are you going in as a graduate school? I'm going to say that this student is in their first year of school. They have not obtained or earned their first bachelor degree. So we have a first year student not yet earned their bachelor degree. Now that we're going to dive into the questions about that person's circumstances, and this will also dictate dependency. Number one, are they an active service member? Are they a veteran? Do they have children or they have dependents? At the time that they turn 13, were they orphaned? Were they awarded to court? Were they in foster care? Are they a legally emancipated minor as determined by the court in their state of residence? Or are they in legal guardianship with someone other than their parent or step parent? So we're going to do, I'm going to go back and touch on each of these. But with this particular case, we're going to say none of these apply. Now, many of you are going to say, well, wait a minute, Mr. Isaiah. If she's answering no to all of those questions, how possibly can she be considered an independent student? Well, I'm glad that you asked that good question. When it comes to those particular questions, you're right. If a person is entering no, they may not be considered an independent student. However, their current circumstance can also render them an independent student. In this particular case, this student is considered homeless. So if they do indicate yes, that they as on or after July 1st of 2023, they were an unaccompanied or homeless youth or at risk of being homeless, then we're going to ask questions such as, okay, who can attest to that? Is that a director or someone that's a head of a transitional shelter, an emergency shelter, and so forth? Is that your high school or your school district homeless liaison, where if you're coming out of the K-12 programs, you're typically gonna go back to that individual to verify your circumstance? Is it a director, a designee from one of the federal trios or GEAR programs? It could also be a financial aid administrator at a college or university. Because although we were coming in with this student as a first-year freshman, who indicated, hey, I don't meet any of these criteria, but I am a homeless at risk of being homeless, or I'm also been displaced. Well, guess what? That could be verified and reviewed from the FAA, or they're also known as the financial aid administrator at your college, university, or career school. Now, if you check one of these boxes, then you're going to be deemed an independent student, and just be prepared to provide whatever documentation the school may require. But in the case that you can't verify that, you're going to hit none of these apply and continue. At that point, you're going to be what's called provisionally independent student, which means that we're going to give you independent status right now, but that information is going to have to be confirmed by the financial aid office. And so once they make that confirmation, and then the provisional status will drop, and then you'll stay as an independent student. Okay, so this is only if one of those designees, or the designees from the TRIO program, the director of the transitional shelter, as well as the FAA. As long as if you don't have that attestment, then you're going to need to verify your status, and they're going to have to contact the financial aid office in order to do that. Okay, so we're going to go back one, and we're going to say that, okay, well, no, the director can. Let's say we'll go to a homeless liaison. So you can check more than one. We can go into homeless liaison. That's more common. We're going to hit continue. And again, in this case, this person has been deemed an independent student. So a good rule of thumb is that if you have someone who can attest to that, listed as to one of those four, then that would deem you independent. Of course, it might have to be verified through the financial aid office. So keep that in mind if you are experiencing homelessness or at risk of being homeless as well. So we're gonna go ahead back just a little bit, okay? So we're gonna uncheck none of these apply. Now, when we're looking at different circumstances, if a student says, well, I am an active service member, I am in the armed forces for anything other than training, they're just gonna click the top box, you hit continue. We're gonna ask you whether or not you're homeless. The individual says no, they're taking care of me on base. You're gonna hit continue, and you now independent student. All we need is your information, because we just need your information simply because you are not married. So because you're not married, you're not going to need information from anyone other than you yourself. So let's go back one time. Let's say, for example, if we're gonna unclick none of the above, and we're gonna say this individual graduated high school, and when after graduating high school, life happened, or just life happened while they were in school. So now the kids are getting a little older. They're very excited that they want to go back. And this individual, let's say, is 23, because if they were 24, this will be dictated by their age, automatically making them an independent student for the most part. So just want to say for this particular case, this individual is about, let's say, 20 and under, and has kids. So everything else doesn't apply to them. We're going to ask about if they're homeless. Again, this question is asked on all circumstances. And then again, this person is deemed an independent student. So that's if they wanted to have a family, if they have a family, they're still under the age of 24. Again, they'll be deemed an independent student and they can proceed on with just their information. Now, if they check any one of these boxes here, at any time since the child turned 13, they were an orphan, watered a quarter, or in foster care. Then what they'll do is come in here, hit continue. We're going to again ask them about if they were homeless or not. Remember, if they hit yes, it's going to deem them, unless and they can attest to it, it's going to deem them independent. But we're doing a dry case from here, and again, they're considered an independent student. We'll just need information from them. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back one more time. And now we're gonna look at this and say, okay, if they're emancipated minor, that means that the court is deemed that they're in the right mind, that they're an adult mindset to take care of themselves without the help of their aid of their parent. If they do click that, they're gonna hit continue, and they're gonna if they are homeless, then they're gonna hit yes, and then they're gonna be presented with the additional questions we just saw, and I'll just do that for our demo purposes. And they're gonna be considered an independent student. So let's go back one more. These are the designee questions. So let's go back one more. And let's say, lastly, the student is in legal guardianship with someone other than their parent or step-parent, as determined by their state of residence. In this particular case, they're going to hit continue, and then they're going to come here and ask, hey, were you homeless on or after July 1st of this year? They hit no, and they hit continue, and they'll be deemed an independent student as well. So for this collection of scenarios, we had a student come in and she was going in her first year. She had different scenarios different elements that she could have been. If she checks one of them, there are sub questions that may come up. If not, there is also a second question asking about her if she's homeless or at risk of being homeless and so forth. And so if he answers yes to that, then she'd be considered an independent student if she can have someone to attest to that, and that's the director of the transitional shelter of the shelters. That's your director of the TRIO or the Gear Up programs. That's your financial aid administrators. That's also your local district homeless liaison. So if any one of those four can attest to that, then of course you'll be deemed independent. If none of those apply, then it'll be a provisional status. So this is as a student coming into this completing the FAFSA under those circumstances. But let's go back, because you remember when I was saying that the marital status does play a part in this. So we're going to go ahead and explore that a little bit more. I'm going to come back here, and we're going to come down to married. Okay, so married and remarried, and for an independent case is going to align with the same. So we're gonna do those both together. So in this particular case, this individual is coming in. They had went to some college before, but life happened. They decided to stop. Go into their career, and they're very successful in their career. And it got to a point where they wanted to take the next step, which probably required a college degree, or they were ready to start a second career and wanted to just get the training necessary. So in this particular case, they're going to come in for their second year. When they begin the year, they're going to have they're not going to have their first bachelor's degree. And they're going to come in and they're going to answer one of these particular types of questions, right? Well, we have children, so we're married and we do have children. We're going to go ahead and hit continue. We're also going to ask them again about their homeless status. So we're going to come in here, and they're going to be deemed an independent student as well. Now, we're also gonna move forward. We're gonna come back to the married status simply because when you're married, we do require information from your spouse. So we're going to explore that, and then I'm going to let you know that, hey, if you're not married, it's going to skip these levels of questions, and then we're going to come back and regroup in section 3. So we're going to go back over here a little bit because we want to explore the other 2 options that we have. We're going to give this a second. There we go. We're going to explore the other 2 options, and those are going to be divorced, separated, or widowed. Now, real and simple, if you are a widow at the time of application, we are sorry for your loss. You're going to complete this application with your information, and we're not going to need your information from your deceased spouse. So keep that in mind. If you're divorced at the time of application, then we're only going to need information from you as well. If you're legally separated, then that information, and you're legally separated, but you filed jointly at the time with the tax returns that we're looking at, then we're just going to need information from you, and it's going to have to be broken down to that. And then you have to have additional conversations with the financial aid office. A true rule of thumb when it comes to the tax returns is that for the 24-25 FAFSA form, we're going to need the 2022 income tax returns. So it's 2 years ago, is what we call prior year. So anytime you see the first year in that 24-25, you just take 2 years prior to that, it's 22. So if you're completing it for this year, like you're completing the one for 23-24, we're looking at the 2021 tax returns. I know that may be a little bit confusing to some, so just try when you think about it, 2 years prior to the FAFSA that you're completing, or if you're very confused, please feel free to reach out to us, the financial aid administrators, or your counselor or college access or career professionals. So in this particular case, we're going to go ahead and move forward married. Now, I'm going to throw you a little bonus in this one. In this case, we're going to say this individual is going back for their master's degree or doctoral degree. Now, they would have already have their first bachelor's degree. And so now that's going to be the next question that we're going to ask them is, hey, are you pursuing initial teaching certificate at an elementary or secondary level to be considered for additional grant funds? And if this person says, well, I'm not going to become a teacher, but it doesn't mean that they may not be a teacher in the future. And please, let's just take time to appreciate your favorite teacher growing up, whether it's in kindergarten up until grad school. We appreciate all the work as teachers that you guys have sacrificed throughout this whole entire time to help educate us and educate the community. So this person here is not pursuing a certificate program. We're going to hit continue. And as you can see, the dependency questions come up again. Do they meet any of these? In this particular case, this person, we're gonna say no. This person doesn't have any children, but they're married. They don't have any children. One person is pursuing a grad degree. We're gonna hit continue. Actually, we're gonna hit none of these apply before we hit continue. And now we're still asked a question about their homeless status, and we're gonna hit no. And again, the person is deemed an independent student. So, what did this tell you when we were running these several scenarios? Different questions dictate whether or not you're going to be deemed an independent student or a dependent student. It's not just a click of a button and just say, okay, I'm done. Different circumstances are different. Circumstances are different for people. And so we ask these particular questions to determine whether or not a student is an independent or dependent student. And for this case, this person is deemed an independent student. Now we're moving on to information about their spouse. Remember what I said, if you're widowed, if you're divorced, if you're legally separated, if you are single, you're not going to be presented information about your spouse. So you're just going to get presented information about yourself. But we're running the scenario with the spouse. So because this person is married, this is where information about their spouse is needed. So when they're going to come down here and she's going to click my significant other is John Doe. We're going to hit the first individual's birthday is, let's say, 1998. Their social security number is going to be just our generic one. Now, if they do not have a social security number, you just check this box, and then you have to enter the address where they reside, as well as a country, in addition to the email address. It's imperative that they have an email address or an FAFSA ID so they can come in and because they are going to be considered contributors, so they can go ahead and add their information to it as well. So just keep that in mind as well. But in this particular case, this person does have a social security number. You also want to let them know that they should create an FAFSA ID to make things a little bit easier for them as well. So in this particular case, we have Jane Doe at gmail.com. And then we're going to send an invite to them to complete information part of the FAFSA form as well. Jane Doe will receive an email. Jane Doe's to click on that email and then go through the process. And once they add information, the total FAFSA application will be complete. But this student who is completing it on their behalf does not need to fill out all that information for their spouse. They just simply send them the invitation, and they can go ahead and come down and hit continue. Now we're going to move on to the second section. That's on the demographics. Most of these questions are completely optional, and I'll touch on several ones in a bit. So they're presented with the title screen. They go ahead and hit continue. They can either answer these questions, or if they prefer not to, they can do that as well. In this particular case, he chose to do so. When responding to this question, it really helps us to the services and products that we develop and provide to you all. So the more customized that we can get in the way we can develop our products and services, the better product and services that you all can enjoy. So this is why we ask several of these questions. So in this particular case, this individual is a female. She's going to come down and answer additional questions. After review, she says, you know what, I prefer not to answer. And if we ask questions about the race, the person says, I prefer not to answer. That's perfectly fine. It's not going to render her ineligible for federal student aid if she decides not to answer, but it does help us, again, with things that we do develop. And also, when they're answering questions about demographics, two types of individuals can receive federal student aid, and that's your U.S. citizen or national, or an eligible non-citizen. If you're wondering what is an eligible non-citizen, we do ask you visit our studentaid.gov. Check out our information on who is deemed an eligible non-citizen. There are several different types of individuals, so feel free to check out whether or not you are considered an eligible non-citizen on studentaid.gov on the information by reviewing the information there. In this case, she was born in New York and she was raised in New York, and she's a U.S. citizen. And she's going to go ahead and click U.S. citizen or national. Again, if you're eligible non-citizen, you just select eligible non-citizen, and it just continues on as if you were a U.S. citizen, because we're not going to ask additional information from there. So we next ask information about the parent education status. This is not required. If you don't know, you just select you don't know. If neither parent attended college, or one parent attended college, or both parents attended college, then you just select the appropriate one. If you don't know, you don't know. So you just select don't know. Next, we ask the question of if your parents were killed in the line of duty. And we're referring to if they were on active duty on or after the events of 9/11, or they were performing official duties as a public safety officer. If they were killed in the line of duty, you want to go ahead and hit yes. If they were not, then you want to go ahead and hit no. Next, we have questions about the high school completion status. Now, in order to receive federal student aid for pursuit of a college education or career education, then you need to have a high school diploma or the state equivalent of a GED. You could be homeschooled. That's perfectly fine, as long as the certification is confirmed by the school system. So if you hit homeschool, it's going to treat it equivalently to high school. Okay, but also if you completed a GED equivalent program, we're going to ask you additional information about that program and the state that you have completed the program in. But for this particular case, it's going to be high school diploma. Or you can hit none of these as well. But again, in order to receive federal student aid, you must have a GED or a state equivalent or a high school diploma. Then you're going to hit continue. And we're going to ask you information for that particular high school. So this student lived in New York. And then they said, oh, okay, I'm looking down here. I don't see my state. Don't worry. Okay, this is a prototype platform, which means that we only pre-populated a certain number of values. When you're completing the 24-25 FAFSA form, you will see the cities that are within that particular state. We may not include all high schools, but you do have the opportunity to add the high school manually. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and hit search. So we did New York. They were born in New York City, in the state of New York. We just hit search to look up all the options. But again, on this particular case, we didn't include all high schools, all academies, or all towns. So we go ahead and hit select here. We selected the option here. If a person went to a particular high school, we're going to say that this person went to Hempstead High School. Then we're going to come down and he'll hit search, and then you'll select it down here. But in this case, again, we're going to say that this person went to Success Academy Charter School in Harlem. If you do not see your school, you can also come down here and add your school. It's right here. I'm highlighting. You're gonna come down here and add your school manually. I'm going to ask you the city and state and the high school name. In this case, this person went to Success Academy Charter School. I'm going to hit continue. We're going to ask to confirm the high school. You can go back in, hit edit, and then edit the information if it's incorrect. But this information will be, you just want to confirm on this particular screen for Rhea. Looks good. Now we're going to ask questions about our finances. This is section 3. She already confirmed and already consented and approved for the FTI, or the Federal Entrenchment Information, to be sent from the IRS onto her FAFSA form, so she does not need to answer questions about that. We're going to skip past all of that because, again, she consented, and just dive into other information that may not be covered. Now, what she's going to do is if she claimed any one of these, or if she's on any one of these programs, she's going to go ahead and check. We deactivated these options for the demo purposes. But she's just going to click any one of these options and go on to the next screen. In this particular case, she is not. She's going to go ahead and hit none of these apply. And then we're going to ask questions about her family size. She's married, so she also stated that she doesn't have any children. So the family size should be 2, right? But if she feels like it's different, then she says, well, I didn't include, I may be taking care of my parent. Does she want to go ahead and click 1? When she is 1, the family size increases automatically. So she's just adding 1 to the number that she has already had. So if you are a college access professional, career professional, or your parent, you're helping your student, and you always sort of want to double check the family size before continuing, just to make sure that it's accurate. So in this particular case, really, they don't have anyone, so she just comes over here. Everyone else other than themselves, they come here and hit no. But this is only in the case you add additional ones if you check the box. Now, also, what you could do as well is that even though you selected that you have dependents in that section where we were going through asking, hey, do you have any children or dependents? You can still come down here and say, well, yes, we do. You know what? I have 3 kids. It's me, my significant, my spouse, and we would have 3 kids. So it's automatically going to select you too. You just add 3, and now your family size is 5 with you, your spouse, and the 3 children. So you can add them because it doesn't ask you that part in that particular section. But in this particular case, we're going to hit no. Next, we're going to come to the number of college. Now here, as you are the student, see, when you're completing this as a dependent student, you're not selecting, you're not going through it and selecting, hey, including the parent in the calculation of the number of college. But at completing it as an independent student, you are. I'm going to say that again. If you're going through and completing this as a dependent student, then the number in college will not include your parent if your parent is in college. If you're coming through this process and you're selecting it as an independent student, you are going to include yourself. If your spouse is in college, you're going to include number 2. If your kids are in college, you're going to include that as well. Okay? But keep that in mind. So we're going to say 1. Now the next section that we're gonna ask is about tax return information. Do you have any IRA rollovers into any other IRA? Do you have a pension rollover into an IRA? Do you have any grants or scholarships or AmeriCorps benefits that is counting as income and being reported to the IRS? And the person says no. Do you have any foreign earned income inclusion? You can say, no, I don't have any of that. Then you get into the assets. Okay. Did you receive any child support? No, because I don't have any children. Or what about assets into your cash savings? In this case, this person is going to say they have $1,000. Typically, a good rule of thumb is that if you're completing this form on the day that you get paid, try to envision what your account will look like after you pay your bills. And then you have the net worth of investments. That's basically what's the worth of it, or in this particular case for your real estate, the appraisal value minus any debt or liens or liabilities. Same thing with your business, whatever that valuation of the business is, minus any debt, liens, or liabilities as well. In this particular case, they have no additional resource, real estate, and no additional businesses as well. So that's just the first three sections. Now we're down to the final two sections. We're going to look into different colleges. We didn't put all the colleges in this particular prototype, but that will be on the on the form that you complete. In this case, this person says, Rhea says, I want to go to California. She is really excited about going to California. She loved the cold of New York, but she wanted the warmth of the beaches. So in this particular case, she didn't care what school it is. She just came in, clicked California, and hit search. If she knows specifically the town that she wants to sort of be in, or where the school resides in, then she selects the city, and then we'll bring up the college, universities, or career schools that are associated with that city. Or if she knows exactly the school name, she can enter that as well. Excuse me. But for the purpose of this prototype, we have 12 selections, and she's interested in going to all 4 of them. And don't worry, she's excited about moving to California, but she's also moving with her spouse, in case you were wondering. So we come down, she's going to select 4. Now we deactivated these, but of course, you'll see there's more pages with more selections on there as well. And she's going to scroll down, and she's going the college scorecard. The college scorecard would also allow students to look at the different sizes and the different fees, the kind of schools there are, see whether or not they're interested in those, and they can also compare them side by side. If you want to know more information about that, please, tomorrow when it's released, check out our video on the college scorecard from our colleague, Brent McAdoo. You'll find abundance of information on that, and we do welcome you to do so. And you can find that video on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/FSA outreach. Now she reviewed all the information, and she went ahead and went back and said, okay, you know what? All of these schools are the one I want to go to. I'm going ahead and hit continue. Now, after she hits continue, we just want her to take a second to look over all of the information, make sure all of it is accurate before signing. But we also let her know that this information was sent to a contributor. So she says, okay, everything's good that I put in. These are all accordion styles. So basically it means it opens up just like you see on your screen, and you can review the information in that particular section. If something seems off, you just come down to this section, you click on it, and you'll get sent right to that area to go ahead and make edits to that as well. But let's say all of the information for her is correct. She hits continue. And then she's ready to sign her FAFSA form. So I, Rhea Tran, agree to the terms outlined above, and she hits sign. She's done, okay? But remember, there was another person that did receive a contributor, and that's our bonus scenario. So her spouse is going to receive this kind of email. So I want you to get used to seeing this email. So you see it in your inbox, it's not a spam. It's an individual that determined you were a contributor and that you could go ahead and add information to. Without your information, they will not be eligible for federal student aid. Completing this information, providing information on behalf of the student does not make you, the contributor, legally responsible, financially responsible for any of their expenses. is just adding information to an application to determine if they're going to be eligible for federal student aid. If you don't complete it within 45 days, then you need to have them resend it to you because it was timed out. So in this case, we're going to go button, go ahead and get logged in. Typically, you're going to have to enter it, or you're going to have to enter your password, especially if you're on a computer that is for the first time. Next, you'll receive a notice that they need your help. You're going to accept, and you're going to hit continue. And then you're going to come to, again, contributing. We're going to give you more information about what it means to be a contributor and letting you know you're not financially responsible for their bill. You're going to check your information. Everything looks good from John Doe's perspective. If their mailing address is different, this is where they want to go ahead and update that as well. So they want to go ahead and hit continue. And then they're going to be asked to provide consent or approval. Again, every person who's considered a contributor must provide consent or approval. If you do not provide consent or approval, the student will be ineligible for federal student aid. So we let them know that, hey, you need to provide consent. They say, you know what, I want my spouse to go to college. I'm going to go ahead and hit approve. We're going to ask you about your finances, very short questions. And these, again, by hitting consent and approve, it's already populating information onto the FAFSA form itself. So you're going to go ahead and hit, these are additional questions that you'll be asked. Again, hit 000, just to kind of review for those of you looking on the screen. It's the rolling the IRA into an IRA. It's the pension rollover into an IRA, and it's the foreign earned income inclusion. If you have values in those, you just go ahead and enter it there. If you do not, then you just enter zeros. And then we're going to ask additional information as to confirming it. Confirm everything you have. Confirm everything that you see. Does it look right? Do you need to change anything? We give you that opportunity on this particular screen. And now this person says, no, everything looks good. I am ready to sign. And they just come down, they read all the verbiage here, all the content here, they click, and they hit sign and submit. Now, the information will be taken and will get sent to the school. The school will then review the information and send out either an offer letter or send you an updated offer as it pertains to the information that you provided. Okay, so we covered the demo all as it pertains to an independent student. Okay, and I hope you found this session very informative. But wait, because we have additional information that we want to cover before you head on out. First off, we do have a YouTube channel for all of our recordings. We have, if you're looking into a dependent student, we have a video on that. If you are watching this as a recording, thank you for joining us. We do have information on a new SAVE program, on a fresh start, and as well as returning to repayment and utilizing the loan simulator. We have a plethora of videos that are up right now and that will be going up later on. So please check us out and visit us at www.youtube.com/FSA outreach. At this time, I'm going to bring back in my colleague, Fred, to facilitate the Q&A section of this webinar. Fred?
Well, Isaiah, thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. It was outstanding. We've been asking questions and answering questions throughout this session in the Q&A chat, so we don't have very many open questions left. We only have about 2 minutes left before this session is up anyway, but I'll share a couple of questions with you right now. We have a question centered around, what is a contributor? What does that mean?
Also, a contributor is anyone that's providing information onto the FAFSA form. That will, number one, be the student, okay? Contributor number two can be a parent for a dependent student. If you are married, file jointly. We only need one of you to determine who's going to be the contributor. If you're married, file separately. Then we're going to need both parents as a contributor, okay? If you're married and you live in the same home, we're going to need both as a contributor. This is for a dependent student. If you're an independent student, if you're not remarried or married, then we'll just need your information, okay? So if you're divorced, widowed, legally separated, single, we just need your information and you're deemed contributor number one. However, if you're married or remarried as an independent student, then the second contributor will be your spouse.
It seems to be a lot of question around independent, dependent student, whether you're a graduate student or undergrad student, about what you should put if you're a graduate student. Can you give a little clarification about when a graduate student, or if a graduate student will be determined to be independent or not?
Sure.
Didn't this information apply to them?
Sure. This is the session for you if you're a graduate student, because pursuing your master's degree or doctoral degree is one of the questions that we are asking to determine your dependency status. So as you saw when we were navigating, and if you were here at the beginning, you saw we entered single, the person going through as a graduate student, that also deemed them an independent student. So if you're joining us today and you asked that wonderful question, then this session was right for you.
And also, one last question, as it relates to household size, a lot of questions about what they should put. I think they're thinking about the application that's currently out there, not the upcoming 24-25, as it relates to the household size, whether it's a student who's going to college or a parent who also is in college, what number they should put for household size. Does that matter for the 24-25 year?
So whenever you're filling out the household size, you have to think of it in two different buckets or two different brackets here, okay? You have the family size where we're asking, okay, plus the student, who else is the student taking care of? Who else are the parents taking care of, or calling dependent, or naming or confirming them as dependents, right? If that's the case, like if you're an independent student and you have one child, then the family size is 2 for the parent and the student. If you have a spouse, it's going to be 3 for the parent, the parent 1, parent 2, and then the students. But let's say the parents have multiple children that they provide financial support for. Then, in that case, if it's 2 siblings plus a student and a parent, and from a 2-parent household, that's 5. The parent number 1, parent number 2. Then you have the student and their 2 siblings. That's 5. That's going to be placed onto the FAFSA form in the section that I referred to. However, if you're referring to the number in college, in an independent status, that's the only time that you add the student in terms of going to college if you were the parent, because you, the parent, are the student. So if you're entering as an independent student, that's when you're going to enter one in college. If you're completing the form as a dependent student, under those circumstances, you're not entering the parent into the number in college. You're excluding that amount. So keep in mind there's different approaches to different buckets.
Thank you very much, Isaiah. And that's going to wrap up our Q&A section. We want to thank you for a great presentation and thank everybody for joining today's session. As was mentioned earlier, you can find this recording on our YouTube channel at FSA Outreach, and that will be available in 24 hours tomorrow. So please take full advantage of that. If you want to rewind and review the presentation given tonight by Isaiah. If you want to request a PDF copy of the PowerPoint presentation, you can do that also at the same site. Look in the description. There's a request form you can fill out, and we can get that emailed out to you as soon as possible. Thank you again for joining again, and that concludes tonight's session and our boot camp for 2023. Have a good evening.
Here you go, Ms. Devine.
Okay, I know that was a lot of information, and some of it you may feel does not apply. Try to just take what it does apply to you and keep it in the back of your mind. So when that form is finally available, hopefully in December, you will have a little bit better understanding. And you certainly can go back and scroll through this information at your leisure. They also have a lot of detailed sub layers to that. If you go onto their website, you'll find plenty of information for more specific details that you might have questions about. Okay, so I have to apologize. My internet was terrible. So I understand that you guys had a better time than I did. If you have any questions, I guess we can put them in the chat, or you can send me an email and I will get back to you in that way. Okay, Ms. Kirschbaum, is there any questions, or are we?
There are no questions at the time.
Okay. All right. So thank you for being with us tonight. And you can always email me at edivine@nyc.gov. All right. Good night.